Most women know about the importance of a healthy prenatal diet, but much fewer understand the role nutrition plays in creating a healthy postpartum mom, especially one who's breastfeeding. I'm Sarah Vance, a nutritionist, a kids yoga, and group exercise instructor. Today we'll be discussing nutrition for the breastfeeding mom. This is the Boob Group, episode 22.
Breast milk, it does a baby good.
Silly daddy, boobs are for babies.
I make milk. What's your superpower?
If my breastfeeding offends you, put a blanket over your head.
Dairy diva. Don't be lactose intolerant.
Nursing nature's own breast enhancement.
Meals on heels.
Whoever said there's no use crying over spilled milk never had to pump.
Breast milk. All others are inferior.
Whatever your point of view, we're here to support your breastfeeding goals. We're the Boob Group, because mothers know breast. Welcome to the Boob Group, broadcasting from the Birth Education Center of San Diego. I'm your host, Robin Kaplan. I'm also a certified lactation consultant and owner of the San Diego Breastfeeding Center. At the Boob Group, we're your online support group for all things related to breastfeeding. Have you checked out our fabulous articles on our blog? We have several moms who have offered to blog about their breastfeeding experiences for the Boob Group, and I was completely blown away by their stories. If you are interested in sharing your breastfeeding stories, feel free to contact me through the link on our Boob Group website, which is www.theboobgroup.com. So today, we're joined by three lovely panelists in the studio. Ladies, will you please introduce yourselves?
My name is Marshall Papa. I am 33, and I work as a grants and funding specialist part-time. I have 3 children aged 4 and also 2 and 2. I've got 2-year-old twins.
I'm Mary Jane Fisher, age 35. I'm a stay-at-home mom to Jason, who is 14 months. And yeah.
I'm Jessica Butanda. I'm 32 and a teacher on assignment up in Ontario, California. And I have one daughter named London, who's 17 months old.
All right. Well, ladies, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So here's a comment from one of our listeners. Her name is Jean, and she's from Riverdale Park, Maryland. Hi, Boob Group. I just love your ongoing series about you following 3 new breastfeeding moms for the first year. I recently had my first baby, and I've been listening to these episodes to get an idea of what to expect in the upcoming months. It's really nice to know that I'm not the only mom out there having issues. I recommend your show to the women in my breastfeeding support group all the time. Thanks for the great resource. And thanks so much, Jean, for writing this in. Today on the Boob Group, we're discussing the importance of nutrition for the postpartum and breastfeeding mom. Our expert, Sarah Vance, is a nutritionist and a kids yoga and group exercise instructor. Thanks so much for joining us, Sarah, and welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Sure. Sarah, I know that recently we've moved from this kind of traditional food pyramid way of thinking that probably most of us remember learning about in grade school, to one that actually includes more healthy fats and encourages more fruits and vegetables. In your practice, how do you define healthy nutrition?
Well, first of all, I am so glad they moved away from the My Pyramid to the My Plate. And even though it's not perfect, one of the things that it does emphasize that I think every American needs is more plant-based foods. You know, if you look at the plate, half of the plate is plant-based food. So that means that they really want you to fill half your plate at every meal, which is not necessarily easy, but a good goal. It's something really good to shoot for. And so I think it's really taking that emphasis away from, having the foundation of grains. We get plenty of grains. To me, as far as healthy nutrition, it's not at all about calorie counting, but it's really getting plenty of whole, real, fresh foods. Looking at really upgrading. How can we upgrade our foods? How can we really take our foods to the next level, get more nutrition in every bite? This is really important, is looking at reducing our exposure to toxins. That's important not only for our weight, but also, especially when we're breastfeeding, for our breastfeeding for our baby. And what I mean by toxins, it can mean chemicals like preservatives, pesticides, artificial ingredients, foods that we're sensitive to, so it could even be food allergies and intolerances. A lot of times those are undiagnosed. Plastics, BPAs, those kinds of things. I also think you touched on it as well, as the importance of getting healthy fats, and that's really, really important during this time when we're breastfeeding as well for the baby. And then lastly, I think it's something I call intuitive eating. And what that really is learning how to tune into your body to understand what foods are good for you and what aren't. And, I think that's so important, not only for us moms, for ourselves, but for our babies, to really have that intuition and start to really trust that intuition and know that sometimes we might disagree for a good reason with some experts or doctors or whatever, because we feel something different and we know our baby better than anybody. I think of symptoms as the body's alarm system. A lot of times we'll go to a conventional doctor and they'll see symptoms as something we need to take away. But when we take those away, we may not see what's going on. So just, again, being really in tune with that. I think all of these things are even more important before and during and after pregnancy, because you're creating and sustaining another life. So when you're breastfeeding, you kind of need to tune in and look for clues in your baby too. This intuitive eating, you can look for things like chronic diaper rash, excessive crying, a lot of really, spitting up and things like that. That can be a signal that there's like a food intolerance or something like that. So, as far as what things to look for, a friend of mine, actually, she had invited me over after her baby was born, and I think it was just like he was within 2 weeks, and he had lots of diaper rash, and they had him on antacids, and then they were getting ready to put him on a prescription. I said, why don't you just try taking dairy out of your diet? And she did, and it immediately cured it. And so I think just thinking about that intuitiveness for yourself, for your baby, and just really trusting yourself.
Absolutely. And, you're describing what type of role nutrition plays in the baby as well as, the mom. And so what nutrients do you think are the most important for a woman's body in these early postpartum months that will also translate into what their baby's getting as well?
Well, nutrition is important for so many reasons. One, it's just important to keep mom energized. It's important to provide the baby with healthy nutrients and prevent mom from developing deficiencies, because nature's kind of forgiving. What's going to happen is if we're not having a really healthy diet, it's going to rob from mom to give to baby. And so, a lot of times, if you have a day where you're not eating super, super healthy, you can still feel good that, okay, baby's probably not suffering too much. But if that goes on and on and on, mom's going to really be suffering, and that can affect subsequent pregnancies as well. Breastfeeding is, I kind of think about it as running 5 miles a day, because you're burning like 500 extra calories. You need more, you have your fluid levels. So it's a lot, just like you're like an athlete. Your body is working really hard. And what I always tell my athletes is you really need functional foods. If you want your body to function at its best, you need to put in foods that are going to help it function. And so it's just very similar to new moms, is just to really look at how can I make those better choices, and it's just going to benefit both me and the baby. I think one of the most important nutrients for everyone, and especially new moms, this is really one of my biggest nutrients that I tell everybody about, is omega-3 fatty acids. Americans tend to be deficient in omega-3s, and they're brain food, they're mood food, they're food for healthy hearts, and they're also really key in reducing our inflammation. Chronic inflammation is actually an invitation to disease. And so when we can keep our inflammation down, not only do we feel better, but we're going to be less likely to develop many diseases. And, omega-3s are important for mom's health, but also baby's health as well. They're really, really critical for baby's brain development. They're important for their eyes. And so really making sure that we're getting enough omega-3 fatty acids to pass on to baby is really going to be very important as well.
So where can we find our omega-3s, essentially, rather than just going and purchasing a little container of them at the local grocery store?
Well, that's interesting because, throughout pregnancy, we're told to avoid things like, or, limit things like tuna and things like that because of mercury. And so sometimes maybe the safest thing is to supplement, or you can also do vegetarian forms of omega-3 fatty acids. One of my absolute favorite foods in the whole wide world, and it's actually the reason I became a nutritionist, is chia seed. And chia seed is it's similar to flax, but it actually has a lot of benefits over flax. It has antioxidants. So when you grind chia seed, it won't go rancid like flax. It has an amazing fiber content that is actually what's called hydrophilic. And so it soaks up about 10 to 12 times its own weight in water, so it keeps you hydrated, it fills you up, it gives you energy. So it's this amazing superfood, and it doesn't really taste like anything, so you can just throw it in smoothies and cook with it, and I pretty much have it every day.
It's really interesting. My kids are fairly, they're somewhat picky eaters, and we also, and both of them are gluten intolerant, and so we have a hard time finding fibrous foods that they will actually eat because, God forbid, they ate a piece of kale or something like that. And so, but one of the breads that we eat has chia seeds in it, and they love it, and because it has a little bit of a crunch to it, but has virtually no flavor, and so I feel like at least it's a whole grain that they're getting. And well, I guess, is it a grain? Would it be considered a whole grain?
It's a seed in the mint family.
But it has all these amazing properties in that I feel like, okay, well, at least they're getting this.
Totally. And it's funny because you can hide it in so many things. I put it in my smoothies. I make a bean dip with it, and so just kind of thinking about that, just what are some of the things that I could just make it easy? You make a smoothie, just throw it in there. You don't even know it's there, so it just keeps your life easy, and then you're getting those good nutrients as well. You can also get sustainably caught fish. One of the brands that I really, really like as far as tuna is a brand called Wild Planet, and they have half the mercury of most other brands because they're catching the smaller sized tunas. And then it also has 6 times the omega-3 content of most brands because the way they process it, they cook it in the can, and so they're not losing those nutrients. So, just kind of those kinds of things can help. Some of the smaller fish, like you can do a krill oil, or one of the brands I like for fish oils is Barlean's. It just is tasty and it's just easy, and sometimes I'll put it in the smoothies. So there's so many different ways you can get it. Other things like hemp, and you can get a little bit nuts, and so I think just kind of starting to be aware and looking for, like in eggs, they've got the omega-3 eggs. You'll see more and more so because they realize how important it is. More and more foods are offering that in it. So,
okay. What other nutrients would you add to that?
One of the other things I think is really, really important and critical for pretty much everybody to know, but especially postpartum, is knowing our vitamin D levels. And I'm finding that it's not, more and more doctors are really testing it on a regular basis, but it can fluctuate within a year's time. And one of the best sources of vitamin D is actually just sun. And one of the reasons why so many of us are deficient is because we've been told for 20 odd years to not get any sun. And so we're really finding about 70% of the population is deficient. And vitamin D is really important for a number of things. One, they actually say vitamin D is more effective than getting a flu shot, and you're boosting your immune system. So just having optimum vitamin D levels. It also is, Cedric Garland of UCSD says over 70% of breast cancers could be prevented by optimum levels of vitamin D. And actually, it's not a very well-known fact that your risk of breast cancer goes up to slightly after pregnancy. There's a number of things that can help with that, like breastfeeding actually lowers your risk, especially if you can breastfeed beyond 4 months. The longer you breastfeed, your risk goes down. Vitamin D helps prevent against that. Vitamin D is critical for bone formation. If we don't have vitamin D, we're not getting our calcium into our bones, and we're not absorbing some other nutrients. So vitamin D is definitely another one of them. And if your blood levels of vitamin D are optimized, you'll pass it on to your baby. But if you don't have enough, then they recommend the baby gets about 400 IU of vitamin D daily. So knowing your vitamin D, so you can go just get a blood test and they'll tell you. And so you should be up around 50.
One of the things that I found after I had my kids was that the witching hour between 4 and 8 at night made it really challenging for me to make sure that I was getting a healthy dinner. At lunch, kids were usually pretty quiet around then, but dinner was just, man, it was a beast. And so I guess out to the panelists first, do you find that it's challenging to create kind of this desired healthy diet that Sarah's explaining?
In a sense, because of the time frame that you have, I have a 14-month-old, as I said, so we kind of, everything's based around eating and naps. Every time I turn around, it's time to eat, and then after that, it's time to nap. I guess when it's a little easier now that he's a little bit bigger, but when I first had him, it was hard to kind of, get a good nutrition for myself, and doing all the things that I was doing for him. But I think just one of the things that I try to think of, and it is a little bit hard in our house because my husband could live off of pizza if he had his way, but I just try to think of whole foods, just, what's grown from the ground, or, what's just grown, and just try to stay away from, as much processed as I can. And thankfully, my son has taken to our whole routine of veggies. He's just eaten tons of veggies since we started giving him solids around 7 months, I believe it was. So thankfully, it hasn't been that hard, but you're constantly going to the store. When you have whole foods, they don't last very long. So you're definitely having to keep up with replenishing and just trying new things too, not keeping with the same veggie routine.
Absolutely. How about you, Marshall? You have 3 children, so.
Yeah. I have 3 children, and my husband works so much that he's never home during that time. So that's our daily challenge. And I'm probably, like many moms, more committed to my kids' nutrition than to my nutrition. So I'm cooking them all these organic foods, and I'm making the salmon, and, I'm making great food for them. But then I'm so frustrated after having prepared the meal that, that's my personal weakness, is that I don't even sit down to eat with them, because I'm up and down getting more milk and more this and more that. And you dropped your spoon and you dropped your fork. And so by the time I've hustled them off to the bathtub, I'm thinking, oh, wait, I didn't even eat myself. So, I think that it's difficult when your kids are younger because you're feeding them separate foods. You might be feeding them the purees and then just letting them try a little bit of yours. But even now that my kids and I are eating the same meals, it's still a challenge to set that good example for them, to see that mommy is eating this too.
Yeah, absolutely.
And my daughter tells me, mommy dinner. so she's looking out for me.
Exactly. How about you, Jessica?
I feel like my husband and I are eating healthier since the babies come, just because the food that we maybe would want to eat, we're thinking, well, she can't eat that. Well, if she can't eat that, we probably shouldn't be eating that either. So it's just kind of a good way to shift your thinking.
Yeah,
absolutely. And ladies, kind of, what are your favorite go-to healthy foods right now? How about you, Jessica?
I would say, no, I could get myself in trouble. She's going to tell me that's not really that healthy. No. Right now, for me, it's oatmeal, like actual whole oats oatmeal. And it started to increase my milk supply. And now it's just become like a super yummy breakfast or snack, or, kind of a go-to, something that the baby will eat, something that I'll eat. My husband will eat it. So.
Nice. How about you, Mary Jane?
Avocados. Love avocados. And I always somehow have carrots, like with every single meal. They're just so easy to grab and go. Those are two, like, my family always laughs because whenever we go to their house for dinner, they're like, did he have avocado today? And I'm like, yes, he did have avocado today. 'Cause we always seem to be eating it. Anything really quick, that's when we cook meats, chicken or pork chops, we make sure that we cook like the whole thing, and then basically it's the next day's lunch and possibly dinner. So, that's kind of our routine is making the vegetables we try and make fresh, because they don't taste very good to us, and we actually don't have a microwave anymore, so we reheat everything on the stove, and it just doesn't work out that way. So we kind of do those new but meats and fast foods like avocado and carrots, definitely.
Yeah. How about you, Marshall?
My kids are fruitarians, where if I can't get them to eat the veggies, they always want to eat the fruit. And we're, so fortunate in Southern California with so many great farmers markets.
Absolutely.
And that's one of their favorite outings, is going to the farmers market and, eating all the samples before we actually buy anything. And we're also big fans of nuts, and, my kids will just eat nuts all the time. And then we're also a big smoothie family, where it's just so easy to make a smoothie, and I can I don't sneak it where they don't know it's in there, but I can put the spinach in and they don't object to it.
Yeah.
So
Nice.
Absolutely. Sarah, would you have anything else to add for just kind of quick go-tos that moms could pick up and have for themselves or for their children if they're old enough to feed themselves?
Well, first of all, I think all of these are amazing tips. I mean, the one about cooking the proteins, when you cook a protein, cook extra, because they are the thing that takes the longest. And so we do that in our house, and it's so helpful. I mean, just to plan ahead a little bit like that. And eating the things that your baby's eating, again, that's great, because I'm sort of one of those people that just the whole kid food thing, just you're getting yourself into a trap there of feeding them something different. So then you've got to do twice as much work. Then they're going to be, when do they ever graduate from kid food? Some of them will never so things like that, just, thinking about just eating with the baby, cooking those things extra, the smoothies, I'm absolute love smoothies. That's one of the things we have for breakfast every day. And when you're too busy and you're rushing around and you're thinking of baby, I know there's times when you just literally can't get in the kitchen. Well, you definitely have time to just whip something up in the smoothie, and then you'll get your energy. You can, like you said, throw spinach and whatever, superfood you have in the house into that, and you'll at least not have to suffer. Mom will get what she needs to, stay energized and all of that. So just, I think one of the things when we're, as moms, we do tend to just immediately we have this beautiful baby and we just want to do everything for them and put them first. And we also have to just remind ourselves a couple of times that we also have to give ourselves what we need, because we can't be the best mom we can be if we don't have, that soul, I call it soul food. So we have that time when we do some things that we just love to do, and then when we come back we're refreshed. And, so if we have those things that we can do, whether it's even just reading a book or, so making sure that we're doing those things to support ourselves, and then that just makes us better moms.
Absolutely. All right. Well, when we come back, Sarah will be discussing how nutrition can affect a mom's milk supply and mental health, as well as her favorite cooking resources. So we'll be right back. All right. Well, we're back. Sarah, what part does nutrition play in supporting a mom's milk supply, and what foods can be beneficial for that?
Well, you want to eat sufficient calories, again, to keep your energy up, because, again, it takes a lot of calories to feed the baby, and that's just helpful for lactation. Like, there could be certain foods that you're feeling like your milk supply is going down. You could, start to eat things like certain things like asparagus, sometimes can help. Alfalfa, beets, carrots, fenugreek. I don't know if anybody's ever tried that, but you smell like maple syrup. Another interesting one, nutritional yeast, which is a really amazing vegetarian form of...
How do you use nutritional yeast? Because my sister uses it all the time, and I don't really know. I could have asked her, but I'm asking you.
If you're a vegan, you do a lot of things with nutritional yeast. You can make like nacho cheese with it, with cashews and things like that. But one of the two easy things to just get nutritional yeast into your diet is popcorn. Just pop, and I like to do it on the stove top in coconut oil. Pop your popcorn. Always go for organic whenever you buy corn if you can. And then you can put just a little bit of whatever you like on it. Butter, or there's that Earth Balance if you're a vegetarian, vegan, the Earth Balance coconut spread. Just melt that and then sprinkle nutritional yeast on it, and it tastes like cheese corn. So delicious. And then another one that's really, really easy is kale chips, and they're super, super easy to make. You just take the kale and chop it up and put olive oil and salt and pepper and sprinkle on nutritional yeast and just kind of mix it all in there, put it in the oven, and they're like amazing. So, and I had these kids over. My kids are 9 and 11, and they had some friends over, and one of their friends is I always have these picky eaters that come over, and their moms are always like, "What'd you have at Sarah's house? What do you have at Sarah's house?" And he came over, and he was like, "What are those things?" Looking at the kale chips. I'm like, "Oh, they're kale chips." And he's like, "Are they good?" And he sees other kids eating them, and he just popped, and they were delicious. He's like, "Oh, those are great." And I told his mom, she's like, "What?"
No, what is the benefit of nutritional yeast?
Nutritional yeast is a really good source of protein.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and it's vegan, and it really has a lot of the amino acids, and it's kind of energizing and all of that. So that's a good one.
I've definitely seen a correlation between quick postpartum weight loss and a decreased milk supply, both in my breastfeeding clients and for me personally. And so, Sarah, can you explain maybe why this quick weight loss after those early postpartum months can actually decrease a mom's milk supply?
Well, I'm not even really sure if they're sure why. I think some of it could just be that you're just not getting enough calories, and your body's under a little bit of stress. I think one of the things that can reduce milk supply is stress, and losing weight really quickly is actually very stressful on the body. I don't ever recommend it for anybody to lose weight quickly. It's very hard on the liver. So gradual weight loss is safe, for everybody, and it's just going to be much more longer lasting anyway. So I really just suggest that anybody that wants to lose weight does it gradually, and just, continues to make sure that they keep their energy up, that they're, eating lots of healthy foods just to, keep that milk supply going. So,
and you had mentioned also in the beginning of this interview as well that your body kind of fights to protect the infant that you're feeding. And so if it's creating everything for the infant and it's not protecting the mom, then it might seem that that would actually correlate to eventually the supply is going to decrease as well.
Exactly. And it's going to be different for everybody, and I think that's the thing is you just have to kind of know your body and again be intuitive and listen, this isn't going right, so let's make some changes and just be ready to just kind of adjust what you're doing to take best care of yourself and baby and everything you need to be doing.
Sure. And, after having a baby, I think most of us moms, we would like to lose some of that pregnancy weight, and we have a question from one of our Facebook followers, and Brooke was wondering how a mom can lose the baby weight without jeopardizing her milk supply. So you were talking about kind of the slower weight loss, but
I think one of the things that first of all, that I tell all my clients is just cleaner, just if you can, the less processed foods, really actually toxins can cause us to hold on to weight, can cause us to gain weight, can actually change our endocrine system. So if we're drinking all of our water out of plastic bottles, that is a hormone interrupter. So thinking about just getting the glass water bottles, those kinds of things. And another really interesting thing that a lot of people don't think about is your digestion. If your digestion's not working well, then you can actually be, you're not going to, first of all, be absorbing your nutrients properly. So if you're not absorbing your nutrients, your body's saying something's wrong. So you're going to be hungrier. They actually did a study where it's kind of a gross study, but it was a very telling study where they transplanted fecal matter from someone who was overweight, from someone who was thin into someone who was overweight's body. That person lost weight because they had the beneficial bacteria that their body needed to work very well. So, the other thing that's very counterintuitive that I have to just pound into my client's head is healthy fats. Healthy fats are one of the absolute keys to controlling our hunger. So if we are not getting enough healthy fats in our diet, so the whole low-fat craze, we're all starving. We're all it made us all starving and made us all,
overcarbed.
Overcarbed and, pre-diabetic, all these things. So basically when we're getting enough healthy fats, you had mentioned avocado, absolutely one of my all-time favorite foods in the whole wide world. Great for baby, great for mom, just great for everybody. So making sure that you're really thinking about reaching those healthy fats, the nuts, the avocados, getting plenty of those in your diet because those are, again, going to they're going to get your hormones in balance. So much of our weight and so much of everything is controlled by our hormones. There's two hormones, leptin and ghrelin. And if they're out of balance, our hunger is out of balance. Sleep is another thing that we need to, which is not so easy to get when we have a baby saying, "Mom, feed me all night." So when you can squeeze those naps in and things like that, because when we're not sleeping well, we could have our cortisol can go up. And cortisol is a hormone that tells us to store weight in our midsection. So again, it's just a lot of these things that, it's not about calories. It's not about restriction. It's really about cleaning out our diets, taking care of ourselves, so allowing us to get the rest and lowering our stress levels. Easier said than done, but trying. And then probiotics. And probiotics was actually one of the other nutrients I kind of wanted to mention because, again, the health of our gut determines whether or not we're absorbing nutrients. It boosts our immune system, similar to vitamin D, even more so probably. And again, it's key in our weight. And for the babies, probiotics, when our gut flora and we're taking probiotics, we can pass that on to the baby, and that can actually reduce colic and it can reduce allergies and things like that. So it's really good for babies' gut health as well.
Do you recommend probiotics straight for the baby also? Like once they're older? I have a toddler.
Absolutely. Yeah. Probiotics is one of the supplements that I definitely recommend for everybody. And you're going to find more and more, the newer, healthier baby companies will have those put into a lot of their foods and things like that.
And for probiotics, they're alive, so you don't want to buy them off the shelf, correct? You would need to buy them refrigerated?
There are some that can come from the shelf that, like, for example, they'll have something in them that will keep them alive. Like, they'll be like a powder or something like that. And sometimes they'll even have, like, yeast in it, which is kind of counterintuitive. But that allows it to stay alive through. You also want it to have something that'll keep it alive through the stomach to get into the small intestine where you really want it to work, because otherwise if it just goes into the stomach and then it gets wasted. But so yeah, you can, but ideally you want to get the ones that are in the refrigerator section in the grocery store that are live. Those are usually the best. And you want to look for something that says guaranteed, like in the millions or whatever of bacteria for
to know they're the good ones.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And ladies, you all seem like you're incredibly good cooks. I actually want to come to all of your homes and eat your food. What are your favorite kitchen products that you're using right now that really help you to continue to cook healthily for your families? I know for me, Crock-Pot really became my best friend when I had young kids, especially my kids are 15 months apart, so they're close together like yours, Marshall, and they were much happier in the morning, and so I could put something in there in the morning and it'd be ready for dinner, and I could kind of sail through the witching hour. And so have you found that there are certain things that you use more often in your kitchen that really help you to get those healthy nutrients to your families?
Well, the crock pot requires the level of planning ahead.
That is true.
I just don't have it in me to do it the night before, to do it in the morning. So, I think we talked earlier about, cooking something beforehand. So, I justify the cost of, I can afford organic chicken because it is the same price for a whole chicken as it is for, a regular chicken breast. So then I've learned ways to use the whole chicken. So, I'm roasting it and then I'm, taking it apart and putting it into burritos or whatever else it is. Long story short, then I'm making the chicken broth and, making the soups or using it later for my cooking. So, honestly, just the oven. And also, my kids prefer roasted veggies over, most other forms. So just roasting the broccoli and putting the Parmesan cheese on it. So I use the oven a lot. And of course now it's summertime, so we use the grill, which is always nice to just be able to, put that out there. And they're big fans of almost anything grilled. It's exciting.
Nice.
If I put it on a skewer, it's so exciting for them.
That's a great tip.
That's what I was just going to say. I really don't cook that often. I really don't have any good kitchen gadgets, but I swear the toothpick has become my new best friend because I have a toddler who refuses to eat vegetables. But man, you stick that veggie on a toothpick, they just want to nom 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 nom.
My kids do the muffin tins. Oh my gosh, can we have snack trays for dinner? And so they'll eat so much more because they've got those little individual portions and things like that.
That's a fantastic idea.
And that could be good for moms too. You could portion out your food throughout the day, and have that ready and handy. Don't be like me. Don't stress eat the chocolate because the kids are all crying.
How about you, Mary Jane?
Not much more than what the girls said here. Just, saute pan. We saute lots of vegetables. It's funny because I have found that my husband and I got pregnant on our wedding night, so we had all these dessert paper plates left over, and when I put my son's food on those paper plates we're trying to use up, he eats more. Like he has his little plate, and I'm okay because it's paper, and so that's kind of funny that that what we put,
how we present
it exactly.
Absolutely. I really want to thank you, Sarah, for your insight into healthy nutrition for the breastfeeding mom. Your tips were fantastic, and ladies, thank you for your advice as well. I love the idea of using toothpicks and and different types of ways of presenting food. I'm going to go try that tonight when I get home with my kids. So thank you so much for your information. Before we wrap things up, here's Lara Adello talking about ways to overcome societal booby traps.
Hi, Boob Group listeners. I'm Lara Adello, a certified lactation educator, the retail marketing manager at Best for Babes, and owner of Mama Pear Designs. Today, we're here to talk about how you can achieve your personal breastfeeding goals without being undermined by cultural and institutional booby traps. Let's examine whether or not your hospital provided you with enough access to an IBCLC. It's a common complaint. I really needed help. I asked to see a lactation consultant, but she never came. Not all breastfeeding problems require someone with the training and skills of an international board-certified lactation consultant, but many do. And research has demonstrated that having the assistance of one makes a big difference in mom's ability to meet their breastfeeding goals. So why do so many moms say that they waited in vain for an IBCLC's help? In 2010, the United States Lactation Consultants Association released guidelines for lactation consultant staffing in different hospital settings and it cited a paper suggesting that 71% of mothers require the assistance of an IBCLC. Research shows that we're falling short of the recommendation that hospitals staff one IBCLC for every 1,000 deliveries. The U.S. LCA indicates that there's a shortage of IBCLCs in hospitals and that many hospitals don't even provide holiday coverage. That may explain why moms report asking for but not getting to see a lactation consultant. Until the optimal staffing becomes reality, remember that feedback matters. If you are unsatisfied with your access to IBCLCs at your hospital or any other part of your breastfeeding care, write to your hospital. This kind of feedback is taken very seriously and could go a long way in making a difference for the moms who choose to give birth at that facility in the future. A special thank you to Tanya Lieberman, IBCLC, for writing the Booby Trap series for Best for Babes. Visit bestforbabes.org for more great information about how to meet your personal breastfeeding goals, and my business, mamapeardesigns.com, for breastfeeding supportive wearables. And be sure to listen to the Boob Group for fantastic conversations about breastfeeding and breastfeeding support.
Thank you so much to our experts, panelists, and to all of our listeners. I hope you'll visit our website, theboobgroup.com, and add your tips and tricks for eating a healthy diet in the comment section of this episode. If you have any questions about today's show or the topics we discussed, call our Boob Group hotline at 619-866-4775, and we'll answer your question on an upcoming episode. If you have a breastfeeding topic you'd like to suggest, we'd love to hear it. Simply visit our website, theboobgroup.com, and send us an email through the contact link. Thanks for listening to The Boob Group, because mothers know breast.
This has been a New Mommy Media production. The information and material contained in this episode are presented for educational purposes only. Statements and opinions expressed in this episode are not necessarily those of New Mommy Media and should not be considered facts. While such information and materials are believed to be accurate, it is not intended to replace or substitute for professional medical advice or care, and should not be used for diagnosing or treating healthcare problem or disease or prescribing any medication. If you have questions or concerns regarding your physical or mental health or the health of your baby, please seek assistance from a qualified healthcare provider.
Hey mamas, don't forget to check out Mighty Moms. It's our online community built for new moms just like you. Not only can you connect with other moms, but you can also join us backstage for special mom-only online events. And you'll also be notified when we're recording so you can join us as a special guest. Visit our website, newmommymedia.com, and click on the Mighty Moms banner. It's free. That's newmommymedia.com. See you there.